Welcome to the Wednesday show. A lot of people pay a lot of money to have hair that looks this messy. Of course, welcome back to Extraordinary Times. First story of today, I wanted to jump back to something AJ talked about yesterday with the Indian vegetarian McDonald's. Apparently, ones that they're trying to open that are all vegetarian, first ones in the world, are going to open up very, very, very close to these holy sites that are very, very sacred to the people with which they are trying to cater. Unfortunately, it's being met with a lot of resistance, a la the fact that it is a company based on beef slaughter and they're trying to cater to people who hold beef sacred. So, very much like they do in America, they're being protested in India. Good job. Go freedom. And continue our coverage of the DNC. Apparently, right after AJ talked about the fact that they took God and Jerusalem out of the Democratic platform, apparently a bunch of people rammed it through, and by rammed it through, I mean they voted on it, said that they weren't going to do it, and then did it anyways. Put back God and Jerusalem, pro-Israel stances into the DNC's platform. So, it was so important that they had to lie and cheat to get it back in there. Also, if you've been paying any attention to it, the number 4.5 million jobs created has been being thrown around the DNC a lot in the last couple of days, and rightfully so. But at the same time, if you actually run the numbers as to what has increased and what has decreased, apparently we're still about a net loss of 400,000 jobs. So if you actually look at the details, these very wonderful numbers actually turn out not nearly as wonderful. Going further down the DNC rabbit hole, apparently some of the officials from the Democratic National Convention are going out and talking to newspapers the way that people do, and it's wonderful to hear what they really think of the Republican side of things, because they never really use the word Nazi, because Nazi is a horrible, horrible word to use when talking about another person. But apparently it is okay to reference Eva Braun and Joseph Goebbels and things when talking about prominent Republican officials. So they're kind of sideswiping the fact that they are comparing us to Nazis. I don't know. Maybe it's a bad thing. A little bit, yeah. Though if fair is fair, I'm going to play for you right in this little segment. This is what we're going to call "The Government is the Only Thing We All Belong to."
We do believe you can use government in a good way. Government's the only thing that we all belong to. Government's the only thing that we all belong to. Government's the only thing that we all belong to.
And that is, of course, from the Democratic National Committee TV stuff that they're playing for all of you to watch and absorb into your minds. Apparently,
government's the only thing that we all belong to.
If you don't believe me, the video's right here. And I'm only going to mention the fact that Shepard Fairey, the guy who came up with Obama's Hope poster, is being sentenced to prison time for basically destroying evidence that he had taken that photo from an AP photographer. And so it makes me happy that people who cheat the system are going to get theirs. But I don't really want to talk too deeply about that and all the details. So we move on in Kansas, Hutchinson, Kansas, a town very, very similar in a lot of respects to the one fictionally portrayed in Smallville and in Superman comics. They have started a petition in the town to actually change the name of the town to Smallville, so that they can tout, the home of Superman and blah, 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 boost tourism. Great, great arguments. But it's the fact that you're changing the name of your town to fit fiction. The fun part is that it matches in a lot of ways. You can read all about it down there. It's a lot of fun. We'll move on to something a little bit less fun. Down in Costa Rica, apparently a 7.6 earthquake shook the country and several of the neighboring countries. But the great part about it is that, contrary to most earthquakes that are large and happen in places that they shouldn't quite be happening, nobody died from the actual earthquake and damage from the earthquake. A man died of a heart attack because it scared him, which is legit, but no one actually has been reported died from any, building collapses or anything. No one's really hurt. It's kind of, a bright light in the fact that the earth is trying to shake us off of it. And we jump from that piece of happiness to Sarah Jane Downing, a 7-year-old girl in Colorado who was just innocently walking through a park, came across a dead squirrel, poked it with a stick, got close to it, and then apparently came down with this mysterious illness that we now know is the bubonic plague. For those of you who don't know, the bubonic plague was known as the Black Death back in the 14th century when it killed about, people argue whether it was 30 to 60% of the people in Europe. It basically population control disease. It was kind of awful, but it was spread by rats and fleas and awful things, and that's how they think it jumped onto her, were the fleas. And apparently it is still not dead to the world. We don't come across it very often in the world anymore. 11 cases a year in America, but this being one of those 11 cases, it's really crazy that a 7-year-old got it, and that they were able to treat it so fast, because the symptoms come on really fast and kill very quickly. So good on her parents for actually jumping up and saying, hey, she has a 107-degree fever. She needs to go to the hospital this second. All right, and kind of a last story twofer for you. This is a huge ad against American Airlines, apparently, because, well, first off, I was listening to Glenn Beck the other day, which I only do occasionally now because I'm not usually up when his show is on, but we move on. He was talking about how when he was leaving New York City, from which he was treated terribly in the city by people who disagree with his politics, apparently he was treated horribly by a flight attendant who really deeply disagrees with his politics. That being said, he is a celebrity. People have a right to disagree with his politics, but when it comes to a California boy who has Down syndrome and his family, who had just paid for upgrades to first class, were, they did all the things they were supposed to. The boy was allegedly being quiet. There's cell phone video of him being calm and cool, and like he apparently normally travels the other more than 24 times that they've flown. Apparently the pilot disagreed with the fact that the boy had Down syndrome and thought maybe he would cause a ruckus, and so he was a security risk and he didn't want him on his plane, so they deemed him a security risk and said he couldn't fly, even though there was no evidence to the fact that he was loud, obnoxious, a security risk, anything at all. So to that I say, American Airlines, honestly, truly, restaff. Honestly, truly, that's just my opinion, but I would love to hear your opinion. We love hearing from you guys. Comment down below, like and favorite and subscribe, and we love all of that stuff, and share us with your friends because it helps us grow and us have a lot more fun doing this. So, I'm Jeremy. These are extraordinary times, and be aware.